What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a new video. If you're new around here, please make sure to like and subscribe down below. So, we've done our predictions, as we all know. For the last 2 months I've run the channel, but we have never really taken a look at the current state of polling in each and every single state. So we've done our prediction maps, but now we're going to go ahead and we're going to advance. We're going to do the polling map. So, with that being said, let's get right into it. We're going to start off with the state of Alabama. This one, Donald Trump is up by 25 points in the only poll that's been conducted. So Alabama's going to go safe Republican. I don't think I have anything to explain there. Now, Alaska's a weird state. So Donald Trump is up by 12 in the first poll, and then Donald Trump is up by 8 in the second poll, and then Donald Trump is up by 9 in the third poll. So at the end of the day, I think that this would be a likely Republican state if we are doing plus 12 safe. Anyways, we're going to go and we're going to move on to the state of Arizona, where we do have an aggregate. Donald Trump is up by 4.5, which is a lean Republican state. Anyways, let's go ahead and let's move on to Arkansas. Donald Trump is up in both polls by over 20, so we don't really have anything to explain there. That's going to go safe Republican if we're looking at the polls. Anyway, California, Joe Biden is up in every poll by around 20 or so California is going to go safe Democrat. First Joe Biden state according to the polling map that we have. Anyway, Colorado. Colorado's an interesting state because you have polls that show Joe Biden up by 4, and then polls that show him up by 10. Now, at the end of the day, I think that this is going to be a safe state for the Democrats at the end of the day, as I have in my prediction. But if we're going based on the polling map, we're going to give Colorado to the likely Democratic category. Next up, Connecticut. There's not really much to explain here. Joe Biden, the polling is showing that Joe Biden is going to have this state locked up in the safe category for him and his electoral votes. Now, next up, I think we have Florida, which Florida has a bunch of polls going basically all over the place. But if we're looking at the polls and averaging them all together, I would have to say at most of the ones recently that Donald Trump is leading in, he's up by as little as 4, all the way up to 10. So with that being said, we're going to give Florida likely Republican, just the same I have in my prediction. Anyways, Georgia we have an aggregate for, so we're going to pull up the Georgia polling. Donald Trump is up by 3.8, which is going to be a lean Republican state. Anyways, we're going to move on to the state of Illinois. We'll come back to the states that don't have polls later on. But anyway, Illinois, Joe Biden is up by 19 in the latest poll, and that was conducted back in October. Probably the margin of error is going to get smaller, Joe Biden's up by 9. And then we have some polls where he's up by 20, but if we're going based on the polling, we're going to have to go and give this safe to the Democrat column. I think he's going to win it by a safe margin at the end of the day, but some of the polls are going to be closer than others. Now, Indiana, Donald Trump is up by 21 points, and then 19 in the second poll. So, Donald Trump is going to win the state of Indiana by a safe margin, according to the polls. Anyways, Iowa, Donald Trump is up in the state of Iowa by around 15 points in the latest poll. But there are a bunch of polls that show him around by under 10, and then there are some polls that have him like around 20, for example, as I said many times, around 15. So I strongly believe that Iowa, if we're going based on plus 12 margins, Iowa is going to be a likely Republican state. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to go by over 12 at the end of the day, if you've seen my prediction. Now, anyways, next up is Kansas. Kansas, Donald Trump is up in pretty much every single poll by over 12. So we're going to give Kansas, you could give Kansas likely or safe. I'm going to give them safe because that's basically what most of the newer polls are coming out and showing, besides this one here, showing him only up by 11. But I don't think that's going to be enough to really sway it because all the other polls have him up by over 12. Anyways, Louisiana, safe Republican. There's only one poll that's been conducted, which has him up by 15. So I don't really think there's really anything to talk about there. Anyways, Maine at large, we're going to give this one to lean Democrat Joe Biden. Donald Trump is up in the latest poll, but if you average them all together, you'll get around under 5, because every poll, there's one poll that has Maine at large by around, with them up by 11, then another one only up by 1, and then another one where you flip it, Donald Trump is up by 7. So if you flip it around, you're going to get lean Democrat out of Maine at large. And we also have polling per congressional district. And Joe Biden in the first poll is up by 8. And then the second poll, he is up by 16. So at the end of the day, this is technically cutting the safe margin, and that's going to go safe Democrat. Anyways, Maine's second district, you could put this in either column, but at the end of the day, Donald Trump is up by 14 and 20 respectively. So we're going to put Maine's second in the safe column. Anyways, next up on the list, Maryland, Joe Biden's up by around 20. So we're going to give Maryland safe Democrat. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the Senate race, though, because Larry Hogan's up by around double digits. So we're going to see what happens when it comes down to that. But anyways, Massachusetts, Joe Biden is going to win the state by a safe margin. I don't really have anything to say there. He's up in the Massachusetts polling by over 20. So there's not really much to say about. Now, Michigan's a weird one. We have an aggregate for Michigan. So we're just going to go off of Michigan polls. And that one poll that was listed here is not in the aggregate yet. It probably will be very soon. But right now, Donald Trump is up by 2.8 points, which in my book is a lean Republican state. Now, if you want me to do this with RFK as well in the mix, let me know, and I will happily make that video. Anyways, next up is the state of Minnesota. Joe Biden is up in the state of Minnesota by around 4 points in the latest poll, then 3, and then a bunch of weird numbers, and going all the way up to plus 8. So we're going to give this state lean Democrat, because it's probably going to be within 2 to 5 according to the latest polling. So Mississippi, Donald Trump is up by 18. So we're going to give Mississippi to the safe Republican column. Anyways, Missouri, Donald Trump is up by around 17 points in the latest polling, and then he's up by over 12 in many of the other polls, almost up by 20 in some of the polls as well. So we're going to give Missouri safe Republican. I don't think there's really anything to talk about there. But anyway, Montana, Donald Trump is up by over 20 in a lot of these polls, in some of the polls, and then he's up by 13. But there are no polls where he's up by, well, there is one poll where he's up by 12, but there's a lot of polls where he's up by over 12, so we're going to give Montana safe Republican. Don't really think there's anything to talk about here. Anyways, Nebraska, Donald Trump is up in Nebraska by 16. We're going to give that Maine as large, by Nebraska at large. Now, I don't know if we have polling per congressional district, but we will check. We do not have polling by congressional district, so we'll come back and we'll fill that in at the end. Anyways, Nevada, we actually have an aggregate for Nevada, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to use the Nevada aggregate. Donald Trump is up by 3.2, so that would be a lean Republican. Anyways, next state on the list, New Hampshire. There was one poll in 21 where Donald Trump was up by 2, but a lot of the latest polls have Donald Trump or Joe Biden up by 7 or around that area, some more, some less. So we're going to give New Hampshire lean Democrat according to the polls. Next up, we have the state of New Jersey, where Joe Biden is surprisingly only leading by around 7 points. A state that he won in 2020 by a safe margin, Joe Biden's now only leading by 7. So right now, Joe Biden is going to win the state of New Jersey by a lean Democratic margin. Anyways, New Mexico, Joe Biden is only leading the polls by around 11, which in my book is not safe. So we're going to give New Mexico likely Democrat. Up next, we have the state of New York, which this state's going to be kind of close, but Donald Trump is currently trailing by around 10 points in the latest polling. So we're going to give New York to the likely Democratic column. Next up on the list, we have the state of North Carolina, which we also have an aggregate for, so we're going to use the aggregate. Trump is up by almost 5 points in the RCP aggregate. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to give this state lean Republican. It could be likely Republican, maybe before the year is out, but for now, we're going to put it as lean Republican. It could go to likely before the year is over, though. Anyways, next up we got Ohio. Donald Trump is up by around 10 to 15 points. We're going to give Ohio based on the polls because we're going off of plus 12. We're going to give them likely. I think it's going to be around 10-point win for Trump at the end of the day. I don't see how Trump loses it. He won it twice, and he's likely going to win it a third time come November. There was one poll Joe Biden was up, but that was way, way, way long ago. Now, Oklahoma, Donald Trump is up in Oklahoma by around 29 points, or in some states, or in some polls, like 12 points, like the minimum. So we're going to give Oklahoma safe Republican. I don't really think there's anything to talk about there. Now, Oregon, Donald Trump is trailing, and Joe Biden is leading by 16 points, and then he's only leading by 9 in another one of the polls. So we're going to give Oregon to safe Republican. Can't speak tonight. Anyways, Pennsylvania, this is another state that we have an aggregate for. Now, Joe Biden is only leading by 0.1 because there is a big outlier poll that always underestimates Republicans in the mix. Franklin and Marshall is a very left-leaning poll, and I strongly believe that it's not going to be like that, but we're going to give this state tilt Democrat because that's just what the RCP aggregate is showing at this time, but I don't think it's going to be Biden plus 10. I really don't. I think that Donald Trump will win Pennsylvania at the end of the day, but again, this is a polling map, not a prediction, so anything could happen, plus the margin of error for that poll is huge anyway. Anyways, next up, Rhode Island. Joe Biden is up in Rhode Island by 17 points, so I don't think there's really anything to say here. That's going to be a safe Democrat state. That could be very competitive down the road because there was one House race that Democrats only won by 4, so maybe I really think the Rhode Island Republican Party is starting to improve, and that state will... That state in like 15 years could be very conservative and could have Republicans elected statewide. But for now, it's safe Democrat. We'll have to watch because that's going to be a state that's going to be really interesting. South Carolina, is there really anything I have to say here? Donald Trump is up in both polls conducted by exactly 12, so we're going to give that safe Republican. Don't think there's really anything to analyze there. Now, South Dakota, Donald Trump is up by almost 30 in every single poll. Or in like 2 of the polls, so we're going to give South Dakota safe Republican. Now, Donald Trump is definitely not up in every poll by 30, but it's within 20 to 30. It's between 20 and 30, so that's a pretty safe estimate and a very good estimate for what's going to happen there. But anyways, next up we have the state of Tennessee, which Donald Trump again is leading the polls by either over 30 or over 20, so we're going to give Tennessee safe Republican as of right now. There are some polls where he is under 20, like, for example, this poll conducted in April of last year with Donald Trump only up by 16, but ever since that, every other poll has been over 20, so we're going to go off of those polls as well. When you average them together, that gets you a safe margin. Next up, Texas. Now, Texas, this state is not going blue. Let me first get that out of the way. This state will not flip to the Democrats at this time. Now, while Texas does have some weird trends going for it, this will be a state that Republicans will pick off relatively easily in the election. So we're going to give this likely Republican. I expect Trump to win it by less than 12 points. He won it by about 6 points in 2020, and he'll probably win it by more. I think it's going to move more right because of issues like the border and other things like that. Next up, we have the state of Utah. This is Mitt Romney territory. Now, Donald Trump is up by 10, and then he's up by 13. When you average those together, you come out to just under 12 points. So this is going to be a likely Republican state if we're talking about plus 12 margins, because if you take plus 10, then plus 13, and then you divide 23 by 2 because those are the only 2 polls conducted, you have 11.5, which you theoretically could round up to 12, but it's still under 12 at the end of the day, so I'm just going to put it as likely Republican for this point in time. Now, Virginia. This is a state that's going to get really close with a third-party vote share, but as of right now, the polling currently indicates that Joe Biden is favored to win the state by a lean margin. It's ranging all the way from 3 points to, where's the highest poll? To around 9 points. So around 3 to 9 points, right in the middle, right sweet spot. I would say you could say likely or lean. I'm going to give this likely just to be on the safe side with the polling that we're seeing from Virginia. I really can't say lean Republican or lean Democrat, while many of the polls are showing more of a lean Democrat. I just think that once you average them together, you end up with a lean or a likely Republican or likely Democrat type of poll. Now, next up, we have the state of Washington. Now, this is a state that we're probably going to flip back Washington's 3rd district. It's a presidential year, and that district is Trump plus 4.7 in the redistricting job. So considering Trump wins that district by around 4, he will carry Joe Kent over the finish line to Congress with him. So, in most of the polls here, Joe Biden is leading by over 12. So there's one poll where he's under 12, but mostly it's over 12. So Democrats are going to win this state in a safe margin at the end of the day. Anyways, Wisconsin, we actually have an aggregate for Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin's a state where it's going to vote very similar to the way that Pennsylvania and Michigan vote. I strongly believe that Michigan is going to go for Trump at the end of the day. Pennsylvania is the key to the White House. I don't know who's going to win Pennsylvania at the end of the day. I strongly think Trump will win Pennsylvania. But I also believe Trump has a very high... because Pennsylvania is a state where Trump has a really high floor, but a very low ceiling. So, same goes for Wisconsin and Michigan. Those 2 states heavily vote based on the way of the economy, because Michigan, you got a lot of auto workers, and Wisconsin, a lot of white working class population. And based on the current polling, Trump is up by 0.6, so we're going to give this state tilt Republican. I think that's a fair estimate, at least right there. Anyways, after that, we have no more polls left from the state of Wisconsin, any more polls left. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to fill these states out based on how they voted in the 2020 presidential election. So North Dakota is safe. Both of Nebraska's 1st and 3rd districts are safe. And the Nebraska 2nd is going to be like a lean or a likely. I think we'll say likely because it was around 7 points. I think Joe Biden won that district by in the 2020 election. However, if this state moves to winner take all, which is not looking promising, but it's been in the cards, so you honestly never know, I'd strongly believe that Trump will win that district and win the whole state and win the 5 electoral votes. Anyways, Vermont, safe Democrat. That state's going to go D by like 30. Same goes for Delaware, and DC's going to go D by around 90 points because it's 95-5 Democrat. Anyways, Republicans are going to win West Virginia and Kentucky by safe margins, and same goes for Wyoming, Idaho, and Democrats are going to win Hawaii by a safe margin. So there you have it. That is the polling map for the 2024 presidential election as of April 7th. I hope you all liked this video. If you did enjoy the video, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you do get notified for all new videos that I will release. Anyways, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.